Greetings. Thanks for joining me once again for Electric Avenue's YouTube update videos. And we're doing the new releases for February 7th, 2025 today. New records that showed up in the shop, new releases. Sort of a transitional week, I suppose, but there are a fair amount of new releases. So it is not bereft of cool stuff. Couple of things I want to mention really. Well, first, one sort of major thing I sort of wanted to clarify regarding last week's new release list. I mentioned this album, The Weeknd, with his new record Hurry Up Tomorrow. Now, there is nothing printed on the outside of this record to tell you exactly what is in it, and it was kind of bewildering because it's $19.99, pretty cheap album, I would say. So he didn't let out any track list of this beforehand, so nobody knew until last Friday what exactly was on this album. And so this album, the physical version, while I was saying, oh, he's going to be doing something great for his fans, well, I don't know how much control he has over this, but it's interesting. It is an interesting concept, whatever they're doing. I kind of blame Kanye because ever since Life of Pablo happened, where he kept like changing the mixes on certain songs and whatever, we were kind of left with like, well, what is the actual album? What are we left with as like, are we supposed to say this is the finished version? You never really know. And it sort of goes back to the whole Brian Eno concept of sort of regenerational type music and whatever. Anyway, well, this is the new album, Hurry Up Tomorrow, the part 3 of the trilogy. But the physical version is very different than the digital version that's currently streaming online. So not only did he remove all of the mentions of all of the features, guest stars that were on this the day before, so nobody knew who the special guests were. Now that's kind of interesting because it keeps your ears open to like hearing people based on like what the merits of their performance is, and not so much as like or how they fit into the story, and not so much as, oh, here comes a big name superstar, it's going to sound like such and such, whatever. So that was interesting. But the digital version of this album has 22 songs. This version has 11 songs. So what happened was they removed 11 songs from the digital version, and a few of those are just sort of like little in-between sort of like transitions. A couple other songs were swapped out. There's a couple songs on this version that are not on the digital version. So, in effect, you've got kind of two separate editions of an album, playing in completely different running orders, by the way. I think the digital version, something like track 19 or 20, is the first song on this version. Also, the first song on the digital version, which is the one that's getting a lot of press for sounding like Michael Jackson's Thriller, is not on this version. So it can be a little frustrating, maddening. I think what The Weeknd wants you to do is to sort of buy this now as sort of like a companion piece to the digital, or a sort of a special edition, because it does have 2 songs that are not on the digital version, or the complete what the album is that way. And then maybe later on there will be some sort of deluxe edition of this. But it's intriguing. I really was bewildered, and it wasn't until they were released and I started researching and seeing that people were saying, well, some people say the physical version has less, which makes sense because it's a single LP, not a double like the last 2 were. So, I think it's probably a lot for artists to expect their fans to pony up like 45, $50 for a brand new album when they're still getting like used to it. So maybe that's the concept of bring out the full version later. Who knows? He's kind of an enigmatic artist anyway, so I guess we'll figure that out. So, keeping with that theme, let's get to this week's new releases. And the first big one that I have to mention, which started streaming a few weeks ago already, but maybe even November, I think, is Kendrick Lamar. And it's Gen X, GNX. Gen X, this is the indie exclusive blue vinyl edition. And while looking at the cover, there's a picture of Kendrick. Congratulations on your Grammys. And there's no song titles printed on the back. So again, I don't really know exactly what's on this record. Now, if I look this up online, it says, okay, there's, I don't know, 14, 15 tracks. 2 tracks with SZA. That's pretty cool. But the song that he just won a couple of Grammys for, Not Like Us, is not on this album. And so therefore I don't think it's on the physical version either. So that was sort of an online track, I guess. Streaming, this is where it gets so confusing in this modern age. I just sort of wish there was a little more continuity and consistency between what is like physical and what is digital. Otherwise, it just becomes a scattered mess. So, but this album is very highly reviewed and rated, and I hope it's big for him because he's playing the halftime show at the Super Bowl on Sunday. So putting this out the Friday before is probably a pretty big deal, and hope people get out there and pick it up. And you can play Kendrick all weekend. I'm very popular with the kids. So anyway, I don't know. I'm in a mood today. I'm looking at myself in this camera going, gosh, I look kind of red. I feel like when I wear more green, it makes me go red. I don't know. I shouldn't be wearing green today. This was sort of impromptu because we're supposedly getting a snowstorm or some kind of a storm. And I'm filming at a different time. So it's evening. It's dark out. You can tell the lighting is not what it normally is. Dream Theater and their new album, Parasomnia. Is that right? I was hoping I'd say that correctly. Kind of has a sort of Exorcist type looking cover here. Featuring James Labrie, who I think, is that the different singer? I'm not really, I haven't kept up with my Dream Theater so much. John Petrucci, John Mueng, I can't say that, Jordan Rudess, and Mike Portnoy, who I am familiar with because he's all over social media. Gatefold 180 Black Ice 2 LP and a 12-page LP booklet. This version is limited to 1,000 copies. The Black Ice one. Well, I'm glad I got a few of them, I guess. So anyway, and it's been a long time since Dream Theater had an album, so I think people are kind of anticipating that it's going to be something cool. I really like this artist, and she was one of the last musicians to work with David Lynch in a prominent piece of his work. She was one of the artists featured in the Twin Peaks: The Return Roadhouse sequences of bands playing on stage. He really liked her, and she is great. Sharon Van Etten, and this is her latest record. It's really called just Sharon Van Etten and the Attachment Theory. I think the Attachment Theory is also the name of the sort of group of musicians that she's assembled. But this says this is the Awareness Edition on Amber Galaxy vinyl and has a laptop sticker. Recorded at the Church Studios in London. I think that's where Eurythmics, I don't know, maybe. Introducing the first record from Sharon Van Etten and the Attachment Theory. So sort of a group thing she's trying to do here. And the couple of songs I heard were really pretty good. There's a little slight electronic element to them, but they're sort of her voice is just what I think really sells it for me. She's got a beautiful kind of voice that has a pretty wide range. And anyway, so she's kind of an alternative type, I don't know, darling of the press, but she's pretty good. And another band that seems to be really taking off in indie circles, Squid, and their new album, Cowards. I love this cover art. It's like the stinger on a scorpion. Someone's kind of trying to touch it here, but the third album by English art rock quartet Squid. It's the indie edition clear vinyl. Yeah, they're just a really interesting art rock band. There were all these bands that sort of came out, I feel like around the same time that I was hearing about: Black Midi, Black Country New Road, Squid, Geese, and so bands with black or animals in the title. But interesting band and interesting music. Yard Act was another one. Okay, Wilco, Ghost is Born. So this is a remastered edition of this album, classic Wilco record. And there's a double CD that has a few, like 18 bonus tracks, working like tracks in progress type stuff. And then there are massive box set editions of these. Those will be only like available here as order only because they are rather expensive. I believe like the vinyl box set, so I don't want to get this wrong, but I know it's somewhere north of $200. So it was, well, see, the CDs were $160 for the box set. That's the list price, and the vinyl was $250. So I kind of was like, unless somebody really asks for those. But great album, Ghost is Born. If you don't have it, nice time to get a remastered one. This may be of interest to people that like this band, and there's some of his albums that are strangely hard to find or non-existent. But Dave Matthews Band, Where Are You Going? The singles, these nice little embossed elephants across the bottom. It's a new career-spanning collection featuring hits from '94 to today. That being said, the last Dave Matthews record, I don't know if I really sold more than a copy, and that's kind of sad because when he first hit really big, I remember the store I worked in, at least 2 or 3 of his albums, Crash, Before These Crowded Streets, and maybe Under the Table and Dreaming. I think all 3 of those, the store sold over 2,000 copies of each one of those on CD. 2,000 copies is a lot of product, a lot of money. And, to only sell like one 30 years later is kind of sad. So I don't know, the singles might do better just because it's got songs that people want, but I think people tend to buy those albums now. But like I said, there are some albums that you can't get. I don't think Busted Stuff is available. I'm not sure about Everyday, but this features songs: What Would You Say, Ants Marching, Satellite, Too Much, Two Step, Tripping Billies, Crash Into Me, So Much to Say, Stay, Wasting Time, Don't Drink the Water, Crush, The Space Between, When the World Ends, Every Day, Gray Street, Where Are You Going, Dream Girl, You and Me, Funny the Way It Is, Mercy, Samurai Cop, Oh Joy Begin, and Madman's Eyes. So quite a few songs. All right. Another band from that same era, reissuing some of their live performances. They do these like now every year or two. Fish, and this is number 5 in the series, and this one is recorded live April 2nd, 1998 at Nassau Coliseum in Uniondale, New York. And there's the back, pretty nondescript. Features the songs Twist and Stash. Each one is over 10 minutes, so you get like one song per side. And the other one, number 6, And this one is August 6th, 2021, some 20 years, 23 years down the road. Ruoff Music Center in Noblesville, Indiana. And this one features Simple and Blaze On. Simple is 23 minutes and Blaze On is 27 and a half. So cramming a lot of music on side two there. But yeah, so number 6 is longer than number 5. But see, they just got older and they just jammed longer. Uh, all right, so there's some jazz this week. This actually, I think, started to ship last week, but it took us a little while to get it. Miles Davis, Birth of the Blue, and this is a quality. QRP did the pressing. Acoustic Sounds, I believe, was involved in the Analog Productions. Same company, they just have like multiple names. This is 4 pieces of music that were recorded from the Kind of Blue sessions, but then he opted to use other recordings. But it's still cool. If you like that, then there's more of this with Cannonball Adderley, Paul Chambers, James Cobb, John Coltrane, and Bill Evans. It's not really cheap, but it's pretty cool. So also on Verve Acoustic Sounds, so same pressing company, but then they have a different label because it's Verve. This is Alfie, the score to the movie. Well, this was Michael Caine's big film, but Sonny Rollins did the music for that. I don't know if people remember that, but jazz people do. And it was orchestrated by Oliver Nelson. So you got 2 fairly big names. But Sonny Rollins is a big name. And let's see, one at the Cannes Film Festival. Yeah, so this is kind of a classic, fun British film. And Sonny Rollins did the music for it. Pretty cool. All right, and we have Blue Note Tone Poets. A couple of Tone Poets this week. And it's been a while since I've seen Tone Poet, but Horace Parlan, Up and Down. And this one features Booker Ervin, Grant Green, George Tucker, and Al Harewood. Horace Parlan. This was 1961. And the other one this week, because I usually come in 2s, Dizzy Reese, Blues in Trinity. The Horace Parlan is a gatefold. This one is not, with guests Donald Byrd and Art Taylor. And this one was originally released 1958. Also has Tubby Hayes on tenor sax, Terry Shannon on piano, Lloyd Thompson on bass. Dizzy Reese. I don't know, I don't see too much Dizzy Reese out there. Maybe, I have to look him up. I'm not sure if he died young or something. That seemed to happen to a lot of those jazz players. They lived a hard life. I have stories. Well, one story I just think is kind of funny. I had a piano teacher have one, who he was playing in big bands back in the 40s, and I was like, how did you go from being big band player to doing classical music? And he said, oh, it was easy. I could see, sitting at the piano, you could see the drugs making the heroin making its way around, starting in the sax section because there were the troublemakers, right? And then kind of coming around through the trumpets, and then the clarinets. He's like, I knew I was at the end of the line. He's like, I had to get out of there. I think it was probably a wise move. He's like 95 now, so he survived it. Sunny Stitt forecast, sunny and red. This is with Red Holloway. This is through the I think it was the RSD Essentials or one of those. It's like an offshoot. This is more of an indie release. Not Blue Note or anything like that. This is on clear red vinyl. Discover one of the great tenor sax duets. In this record, 2 of the most accomplished sax players in recorded history go head to head and create a truly unique blend of blues and bebop, backed by an all-star band. All right. Anyway, Sunny Stitt. I'm kind of excited to see this actually because I remember when this came out, and this is not jazz, and I thought, oh, I kind of actually like her. She'd had one earlier album that I never bothered with, or two albums, but she's Beyonce's little sister, Solange. And this album, Soul Angel and the Hadley Street Dreams, was kind of like, I feel more like her breakthrough record. It had kind of an R&B dance pop kind of thing going on. Now she's much more sort of like I don't know, R&B centric now, and more almost jazzy at times, a little more hip hop and more like abstract. These songs were pretty like catchy, like earworm type songs. Sandcastle Disco was actually a really great tune. But this came out in 2008. It was originally, I think, through Universal. And then she got signed, I don't know, she kept bouncing back and forth between them and Sony. And yeah, now I think she's on Columbia, Sony. But anyway, young Solange. Ooh. Her sister just won Album of the Year at the Grammys. I don't know if you guys watch the Grammys at all. I thought, while the awards sort of make me a little like, I mean, I think that certain things, awards in and of themselves, I don't really care about. But I do like sometimes when an artist has something that they kind of want to use as like a talking point. I thought Chappell Roan did a really good job. I mean, she was a little bit stressed, but I thought she did a good job talking about young artists, particularly artists who have no money, and during the pandemic they couldn't get health care and stuff like that, even though the record companies depend on them for sales and things like that. Um, and I did think that a lot of the performances were really great. I mean, some were more sort of like showy than like true music, like artists with their instruments or whatever. I mean, there was a fair bit of that, but I think it was mostly sort of like showy. But I am kind of happy that we sort of moved on from the era of like the diva screamers. Um, where every singer has to be louder than the last one. I'm like, I'm okay that we're past that a little bit. So, and as far as like, I was a little upset that there weren't any rock awards presented on the show. I was particularly upset that Prince received a lifetime award, and you wouldn't have known it by watching the show because they flashed up his picture at one point and that was it. And they used to do sort of like dedications to those people and whatever. He's already he's had dedications and whatever, but I thought that most of the performances were good, and there were a couple that were sort of not as good, but it was entertaining. There was nothing that was really terrible. And I was going to say, as far as like, no rock awards on there. Rap got awards on there, so I think that that's sort of swung now the other direction. But I really enjoyed Doechie's performance. I thought she was really great, and her acceptance speech was great too. So, it was kind of like, maybe for some people it was probably a bit like, I don't know, too left wing or something. But I didn't think it was as in your face provocative and whatever as some of the others have been. And I just kind of enjoyed the fact that people seem to be having a good time mostly. So anyway, if you missed it, it was a decent show this year. And Trevor Noah did a good job. All right, RSD Essentials, Denise LaSalle. I think I've shown this one before, but this is the Heartbreaker Red color vinyl edition. So I think the other one might not have been color, but if you like your old funk and soul and whatever, there's that. Peter Tosh, No Nuclear War. Reggae with a Message. Peter was great. He did stuff with Marley early on. This has Vampire on it. Nagoa Jail. Fight Apartheid. Yeah, and this is a I don't know, what year did this come out originally? I don't remember. This album is Livicated to all the people of the world, especially the people of Africa and Jamaica. It says 2002, but I think that's just when it was repressed. So, and now 2025. The Donnas, another reissue, great sort of pop punk band. Gold medal. This is one of their most successful albums, I think. Atlantic Records, produced by Butch Walker. He did some great stuff. Pop punk classic featuring Fall Behind Me, includes inner sleeve with lyrics. I think this one, and there's one other. Is it Get Me Out? Can't remember the name of it, but there were a couple real like big-ish Donna's records. She Wants Revenge, and their self-titled album on RSD Essential Fruit Punch vinyl. If you're sort of into 80s stuff, kind of like very synth driven and sort of darker vibes, that might be for you. I just showed this band a couple weeks ago. They had a reissue of their first big album, indie album, and now we get this, which is kind of cool. This is Perfect Right Now, a Slumberland collection for Pains of Being Pure at Heart, 2008 to 2010. And this is Perfect Right Now, a compilation of 10 singles, B-sides, lost tracks, floor fillers, and rare classics from the early years of this band. They were so cute back then. The first song is Kurt Cobain's Cardigan. It features the song Pains of Being Pure at Heart, which is their name. Higher Than the Stars was a pretty great song. And then they got signed to a major, sort of, and varying degrees of success. I think it's hard to really be successful at a major unless you're like really successful, you know. Some other like indie reissues, Sum 41, an album Order and Decline. This one came out like maybe 5 years ago. But for people who missed that one, it's on neon green vinyl, and a couple records from the Used, Lies for Liars, which I think is an early one. This might be a different cover than I'm used to seeing. It starts with the song The Ripper, and then I can't remember this one is. They have this symbol here, No Love and War, maybe? I can't remember the name of it, but another used record. Not Used, but The Used is the band. All right. That's pretty much everything. The Dream Theater does have like a box set that's on CD, sort of a deluxe edition of that, sort of booky looking. And then for my recommends this week, I kind of like was sort of hemming and hawing about what I should recommend. And I thought, I maybe talked about this album at one point, but I don't know if I talked about it enough. And I feel sort of like a novice when I bring stuff like this up, because I know like people in England, like they were like really living this. But when the first Suede album came out in like 89, 90, maybe, I think it was 90, 91. I liked it a lot. I thought it was very good. His voice, Brett Anderson's voice, very kind of Bowie-esque, very flamboyant. And the music was pretty like good, like alternative rock, very like tightly wound rhythmically, or very dramatic ballads. And the guitarist, Bernard Butler, was a really great guitarist, still alive. And I thought, well, this is a really great band. And for their second album, which I kind of like loved, but they hadn't really done much in America. I think that they tried promoting them on like MTV, like 120 Minutes and stuff, and that kind of got their foot in the door. But they never really took off in America. And I think that whole era in the 90s of like Oasis, Blur, who's the other? It's Pulp. Like Suede kind of gets left out or put like as like the fourth Britpop band or something biggest. I see them as sort of like the bridge between like the Smiths and like Oasis, Blur, whatever, they kind of were in that mid period where there was a lot of like acid house, baggy stuff going on in the UK, and they never really got into like the dance scene at all, and kind of tried to keep it more like rock based. And uh, I think at one point, especially with this record, I felt like, well, they're kind of like heading towards like Bowie meets Pink Floyd type territory. And then this album was so fraught with, well, and I'll show it, Dogman Star, which I don't know, we can show too much posterior on this channel, but um, I feel like this album was so its trajectory was really like screwed up in America because Bernard Butler had so many personal problems going on during this. I think his father had died or something, and the band didn't really. The rest of the band kind of was like, well, some of them were on drugs, and they really just were like, we need to go play, we need to go do all this stuff, and Brett basically got Bernard basically got kicked out by the band, I'd say. So there are stories about them like basically putting his equipment outside the studio door and locking the door out on the street, saying, get your stuff and go. I saw them right after that happened. They started working on a third album called Coming Up, and they got a new guitarist named Richard Oakes. At the time, he was 17, and I went down to see them at a venue in Philadelphia. I did get to meet them, which was very cool because they were pretty popular in England, and nobody knew them really here. And they were sort of like, it was probably one of the sparsest attended shows I've been to. Now, that being said, it was like a wintry night. I think there was some threats of snow or whatever, ice. So I can see why a lot of people didn't go, but it was one of the best rock shows I think I've ever seen. I think Brett in particular put on a great show, and Richard, at 17, he really could play all of the parts that Bernard played on these first two albums. So anyway, I'm going to recommend their second album, which is Dogman Star. This is one of my favorites. This is the Half Speed Master Edition, a 30th anniversary 2 LP edition. It includes the singles We Are the Pigs, The Wild Ones, and New Generation. What can I say about those songs? Like, they are very glammy. Songs like Heroin, which is sort of like, depending on how you want to take that song, I suppose. But The Wild Ones in particular is like a really beautiful ballad, and it's kind of it's a rock ballad. It's surprising that it didn't take off in the US at all. I think that there are a couple of like very moody ballads on this record, particularly Daddy's Speeding, The Two of Us, and Black or Blue. They're beautiful songs, but maybe it was too much slow stuff for America to get. It wasn't a conventional enough album. Bernard's playing was great, but Brett's vocal was maybe too English and Americans just didn't get it. The last couple songs on this record, The Asphalt World, is like a 10-minute sort of rock epic, followed by Still Life, which is one of my favorite songs of all time. It's like a grand orchestral ballad with just, I don't know, the orchestra just sounds so big on that song. And they've done so many great albums since this, and one or two sort of but mainly great albums. But this still remains my favorite from 1994. Like I said, 30 years ago. So Suede, Dogman Star. Yeah. So I think it did fairly well in the UK, but I don't think it did definitely not as well as the first or the third album. And I think mainly that was because they were sort of falling apart at the time. All right. Thanks everyone for joining me for this week's edition. Next week, Valentine's Day. So I don't know. There's new Lumineers next week and a bunch of Credence reissues. Not sure. There's not a whole lot for the next couple of weeks. I think record companies are starting to think, why are we always releasing stuff in the dead of winter when no one can go out there and tour it? So there's a lot scheduled for March, April, like anything that starts getting around record store day type, which is April 12th. Things get a little bit heavier. So anyway, thanks, and I really appreciate you guys every week joining me. Um, it means a lot. There's not really like a ton of people watching these videos now, but it's fine. I really just kind of like getting the information out there. So peace, take care, love you guys, and take care of yourselves. Be well. See you next time.